everyone. I am Chase Segmiller, your host for today's episode of the M42 Adventures podcast. We're going to be jumping on with an individual that, does something a little bit different. He runs a company called Compass Healing Centers, and he does something called the emotion code, body code, and also hypnotism, past life regression. So all of these things are developed to, heal things that you might not be aware of, to address things that, we all kind of don't really know too much information about. And that's why I'm so excited about this interview. And hopefully we all kind of get some really good takeaways of the information that's being passed along here from Emanuel. And I'm excited to learn, and I hope y'all are too. So let's jump right into it. All right. Well, here we are with Emanuel Zevallos. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And then we're going to be jumping on and doing a whole bunch of different aspects about what you do for your own personal business and how you contribute to the healing of others. So let's just dive right into it. It looks like your company is called Compass Healing Center. Is that correct?
That is, yeah. St. George, Utah.
All right. Southern Utah. I like that your company's in Southern Utah. I ended up, finding you on Facebook, which was interesting. And it was actually a post about being on another podcast. And I was like, this sounds really interesting. So I really just want to dive right into it as far as what you do is into your business and the healing aspects and the different types of, you basically call it a type of therapy, right? Energy therapy kind of situation. Okay. And I have written down here emotion code and body code. Can you explain that to me?
Sure. So I started back in like 2015. First of all, thank you for finding me on Facebook. I appreciate you doing that. And but yeah, I started back in 2015, and I've done my fair share of counseling in my past, my personal past. And my parents were both oncologist and hematologist, so I always kind of make a joke about it that like I grew up with a silver spoon, but like they never fed me because like the lady who was cleaning the house was the one that did it, so but the my mom was more on the holistic side, and kudos to my mother who's already passed, but she was a lot smarter than my father, like top UCLA medical school, and things like that. She basically tutored him, my dad, and but she was more unorthodox. She was definitely a different animal at Kaiser Permanente. She was into acupuncture. She was into learning about Reiki, learning about Chinese medicine, and she would probably illegally bring people over to her home to help them out in their situation. And for some reason, quote unquote, they got better. They didn't come back to her and they didn't relapse on cancer. So, and I was kind of her guinea pig from time to time. I would wake up like with Hellraiser needles on me and be like, "What are you doing?" And she would be like, "Oh, I'm trying to take away your nausea." And so I grew up with a woman who was way more advanced in her time. And that around 2015, I read a book called The Emotion Code, Body Code. It was written by a doctor, chiropractor, basically, Dr. Bradley Nelson, and he's become a good friend of mine. He lives like probably 10 minutes away from me, but he basically was just a regular brick and mortar chiropractor, just working with people. He was doing muscle testing. I'm people don't see me on the video. I'm pushing down on my arm and asking certain questions with the body. And the body doesn't lie, tells you the truth, and so he did that, but then he was asking for help from above. He used to always do that before he would meet with people. He would say, how can I help this person? And he would kind of do it in private. But then he started kind of doing a different prayer. He started going like, how can I there's some serious illnesses and serious symptoms that he has no idea how to help them out. And he started getting these downloads of how the body really works. And so for example, a lot of part of my life, I thought that emotions came from my brain, just like thoughts in my brain, dopamine or lack of dopamine or things like that. He clarified that our organs and glands are the ones that are producing our emotions. So, for example, liver produces anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment. So you probably know someone, Chase, that maybe drinks too much alcohol or drinks too much caffeine. It might be easy for them to feel anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment because the liver is working extra hard. It's becoming kind of fatty so they can produce those emotions more. And so what happens is that you're producing these emotions and they're the size of a tennis ball to a cantaloupe. And so this has probably happened to you, Chase, where if you're really angry for a while, all of a sudden, like, your anger kind of turns off and you're like, huh, I'm just not angry anymore, or maybe you're crying and then all of a sudden, like, the faucets turn off. I was always looking for that clock in your body that says stop crying or stop being angry. But there isn't a clock, but it's easier to imagine a ball of energy leaving your body. And as soon as this ball leaves or this sphere leaves your body, you've kind of completed the process of that emotion and you're over it. However, some of these emotions get trapped in your body. They're called trapped emotions. And we have hundreds of these in our body. We might have inherited it, like we talked earlier before we got on this podcast. You could have inherited it from your great 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 grandfather who lost his farm, and all of a sudden you start doing your farm and you feel fear for some random reason. You have no idea why.
Mm.
You could have absorbed it from your mom in the womb, second trimester, third trimester. You could be sharing it with an ex partner of yours. She felt frustrated. You felt frustrated. Technically, you're still sharing that emotion with her. So there's many ways to kind of create these, and they cause a lot of havoc in our bodies. They irritate the tissues of our body, and they also cause us to be reactive. It's not really who we are. It's like they make us very reactive, and they can sabotage relationships and abundance and your clarity of your mission in life. So there's just a lot of symptoms that come from it.
Ooh, I like that. And there's a lot to be said about that. I definitely, people that know me, know that I used to drink a lot, and it's been a little over 10 years now, but that definitely, had an effect on my ability to kind of shift emotions, like almost like
Yeah.
you don't have as many barriers or as many kind of things stopping you from just jumping into those different emotions.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, it's as as much as you can do psychology. And I have a lot of respect for just regular run of the mill therapy. The problem is that the future is more of like, if we can't control our reactivity, that's the thing that gets us to most problems. You can't refer back to Tony Robbins page 72, like, oh wait, what did he say, how do I speak to my wife? Like, you can't do that when you're being reactive. When you're triggered, and you have to wait till it's done, unless you remove the energy that is triggering you. Once that's gone, then you have less likelihood to feel triggered. So that's kind of the future, is just getting rid of it so you don't become reactive.
Hmm. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so the process is through muscle testing. So again, I was mentioning, kind of, for those of you who are viewing the video, I'm kind of pushing on your arm. But the benefit of it, this is the part that kind of wows people, or it's still kind of pinch worthy, is basically I would self muscle test myself. So this work is called proxy work. So
Hmm.
it can be done at a distance. Now, regular people like myself was very skeptical about this. I'm kind of skeptical by nature, but quantum physicists would be very acknowledging of this type of work. If I just
Spooky
mentioned
action from a distance.
exactly, spooky action at a
Yeah.
distance, or I would say non-locality,
Okay.
all those, they'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Or quantum entanglement is another one.
Okay.
And so those words, they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense what you're doing. So what I'm doing is I'm muscle testing on behalf of someone. And this is called the ring and ring method, where I'm using my fingers here. There's other ways to do it. There's this little cool Chinese method where you kind of rub two fingers together. I don't know, have you ever done that one before, or no?
Well, the weird part is I do that all the time.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like I just
Um,
rub my fingers together like this
Okay.
all the
Yeah.
time. I
Okay.
don't know
So
why.
we can do it real quick if you want, just for 10 seconds, if you want
Okay.
to do it. So if you say, for example, so we're going to rub them together, but just kind of rub them really lightly, just kind of
Hmm.
and just say, like, for example, in your mind, just say, my name is Chase, right? So just, you can do it right now if you want. Just go ahead and just start kind of like spinning it together. And it should be pretty smooth, and then if you stop doing it and then you said, my name is Bob, in your mind, and then go ahead and start spinning it, it might feel a little bit friction or kind of sticky. It's not as smooth. So yeah,
Hmm.
so you just did a very successful
It's almost like
muscle testing.
sweaty
Yeah, it's like
on the
sweaty.
middle of my fingertip, which is
Yeah, so
weird.
it's sweaty or it's sticky. Like, you definitely
Hmm.
notice it's not as smooth as it used to be. So that's another way of finding out yes and no answers. And so yes would be smooth, no would be friction.
Right.
And so I would go through this. Um, Basically, it's like an app that has over 250 hyperlinks. It's very complex. I've showed other energy healers before, and they're always just like, what the heck are you using over there? And I would go through that, and it goes through all the different types of bodies: the emotional body, spiritual body, physical body, all the different systems, the central nervous system, all these different systems there. And I would just ask, why do you have this? symptom? And I go, is it something in the body code that we can release? And then they would test positive now or negative. And what's interesting is that instead of typically, if you were here in my office, which I don't invite anybody in here really, is I would use a magnet, because a magnet has a way, like if you put a magnet on a hotel card, you're probably
Hmm.
going to lose the ability to get back into your room, or if you use a magnet long enough on a laptop, you can pretty much harm the laptop as well. And so the same thing with kind of our database is that there's a thing called a governing meridian, which is basically like it's like the motherboard of all your meridians. It's a Chinese acupuncture kind of thing, but it goes from the top of your lip all the way to the back of your spine. And so what Dr. Brad found out is that if you have the intention to remove the emotion, if you put it swipe 3 times somewhere on the governing meridian of someone's body, you can remove the emotion 10 times if it's inherited. And but because obviously I'm long distance with someone, how am I supposed to do it on myself? I can use a magnet on myself and just kind of rub the governing meridian, or I'm kind of cool like that, where the middle finger in Korean acupuncture is like your head and your spine. And if I use the tip of my fingers, which have a lot of electromagnetic energies from it, and just kind of rub the middle part of my finger, it also is the same simulation of rubbing it from on someone's spine in person. And so through that, I'm able to work with parents. I'm able to work with kids who are like 4 years old, 5 years old. I'm able to work with dogs and cats, and all of them have they usually have some symptom that they're dealing with.
Hmm. That's crazy. Okay, so let me ask you a question about the aspect of doing it from afar, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you tune into someone else's body?
Yeah, so someone this is great questions. So someone typically has to give me permission. So if they're 18 and over, they give me permission. If they're younger than 18, like the mom wants me to work on their daughter who's 14, I love this. This is why I love this modality, is because I really feel like, and people are not, this is kind of like the big gorilla that no one talks about, is that I feel like it can be very damaging to tell a child that there's something wrong with them and that they need
Hmm.
help. Like, and,
Yeah.
and and so that's one thing. And with this modality, we don't have to ever tell them that they're being worked on, because we assume that the mother who's over 18 is taking care of them. So it's the caretaker of them emotionally and physically. So just typically I would work with the mother and just say, what symptoms are your daughter dealing with? Oh, she's working with dyslexia, ADD, has a lot of anxiety. And typically what I do is I ask their higher self of the child, where should we go first? And then the body will choose for us. And then I dive in and then work on that child. And then I tell the mother, I need you to give me the roses and thorns. Thorns are things that still need more work, but they're seeing some difference. Roses are like huge breakthroughs. And she would just send me back feedback. And that's the way that I would keep working with that child.
Okay, okay. So like, it's interesting that you say that the body will take you where you need to go, kind of things. That's something that I kind of like I kind of attribute and I tell people about my ketamine treatments
Oh, yeah.
was that when I went into those treatments, this was all part of, relieving anxiety from PTSD and different aspects like that. So like a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And the whole aspect of it was that I would go into it and I would say, okay, now take me where I need to go. And then I
Yeah.
would lean back and go through the experience. But I was
Great.
literally just completely open to wherever the repair needed to happen,
It's beautiful. I love that,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
and ketamine has shown a lot of great results. There's a movie that I think everyone needs to see on Netflix called, Change Your Mind, which just talks about kind of the government and what it did to a lot of things that God created on earth that could enhance our brains and our cognitive improvement. And basically, I think I mean, it kind of shocked me when I watched that documentary that the person that started AA did it through some sort of LSD.
Yeah.
And, that inspiration came, and they used to use specifically LSD on clients back in the day. And they would see huge shifts in them, and I think
Mhm.
the more you realize that you're a spiritual being having a human experience, the better it is for you to fix your circumstance. But I think when you think it's all you, it's all up to me. It's me and my trauma. I am the victim of whatever. It's this. It's hard to break out of the guilt and shame level and kind of move to a higher level. So
Right.
and I think God put those plants there for a reason, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a big I'm a big believer in the aspect of like, if it exists in a natural form, and especially like you dive into things like ayahuasca, right?
Mhm.
And the actual aspect of ayahuasca and DMT not even being able to be digested alone by itself, right? So they had to come up with the idea of mixing two plants together that just so happen to protect it so it can be ingested and pass
Yeah,
through the body and do what it does. I'm like, yeah, right. It's like,
right.
there's certain aspects like that. I'm like, whoa, there was definitely some kind of intervention here that
Oh yeah.
created the aspect for these people to
Definitely,
enhance
and
their
I
experience.
also think the discovery of like breath work of I mean it's probably an ancient custom, but even the fact that breath work is a way to almost trip hop your way into the same experience that you would at a in a Peruvian jungle in Iquitos. You know, what I'm saying like I, I I have had some very breakthrough experiences just doing breath work myself. The fact that your body can do it by itself is
Mhm.
almost an amazing just again just kind of tells you that there's a greater architect and greater plan that we're not aware of.
Oh yeah. I mean, even the aspects of like, through regular therapy, EMDR, like the fact that you can go into those experiences and actually experience and heal from the trauma of something that happened a long time ago.
Yeah,
You know,
it's amazing.
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about this past life regression. I'm interested about that one. My mom used to read a lot of like past life dream books and stuff like that. So, I'm kind of interested to find out what this plays, what part that's plays.
Yeah, and I've become kind of a weird vine out there because it's kind of like I'm a Christian, but I'm an energy healer and like I believe in past life. So it's like I'm a really weird person to talk to because it's kind of like how do you collaborate all those together, you know? But the thing is that they have to understand that like ever since I was like 26 years old, I've always written in my journal KQE, which stands for keep questioning everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
um and I do that because I'm like if something were very true, I'm able to shoot at it, stomp on it, throw it around and and it'll still be truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you'll notice that there's truth in other places and I think that's been sort of unfortunately in some religions kind of like a religious indoctrination, which I have a lot of respect for all religions, but I'm just saying that in some sects there's where they say this is the only truth and then you can't find it anywhere else. That could be very dangerous because you're kind of limiting your mental capacity and your spiritual capacity, right? But for me, I've always kind of labeled myself as a truth seeker before any label has ever been put on me. And what I'm trying to do is try to acquire as much truth as possible because there's suffering in the world. And if I can take my truth and help and alleviate suffering, then I'm willing to go in places that make me feel uncomfortable. And one of the things that made me feel uncomfortable was knowing that I've been here before multiple times because it's not a very comforting feeling because there's just again there's just there's a whole seminar on this, but there are some comforting things about it. So the way I learned about it is there's a book that I read called Limitless Soul,
Mm.
and it's written by Bryn Blankenship, and she was my mentor for becoming a regression hypnotherapist. And again, there's certain people that um, and there's certain movies that even came before that kind of woke me up to the idea. And sometimes when you watch a movie, you're like, there's something true about this movie, and I don't know what it is. One of them was Cloud Atlas. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but yeah,
That
Cloud
one I
Atlas
didn't.
has like Tom Hanks, Holly Berry, all
Yeah.
that, but it's written by the makers of The Matrix, and it talks about how people keep circling back and forth, like soulmates keep kind of circling back and forth, and kind of how karma works. Like you're this in one life, and then you're this in that life, and I just found it very fascinating. And when I read that book, just if you want to call it coincidence, I call it God wink. But what happened was I finished that book in one airplane sitting, and I was kind of lit. Like my wife looked at me, she's like, "You're kind of glowing. Like what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I just finished this book, and I think I need to look into this more." And she said, "Okay." And just that night, the lady happened to be having like a sale that ends in like 23 minutes. Like it just happened to be there, like to become a regression hypnotherapist. And so I got into that, and I had other people work on me, and I kind of found out like if there's certain themes in your life that you don't understand that doesn't make any sense with your childhood, then there's probably something that is inhibiting your growth from a past life situation. So that's where psychologists can't go to. Like psychologists can't go to your past life. They go to your earlier life, but they don't typically go, oh, this is because you were a this person in this life, and because you know did this to this person. Like they can't go there, but your subconscious records everything. And so I just basically take people into a theta state, and then they kind of hypnotize themselves. There's a big kind of controversy of like because of showmanship type of hypnotherapy, where you see people turn into a chicken and they don't remember that they were a chicken a couple seconds ago. That's really not what I do at all, and it's kind of slightly a mockery of hypnotherapy, you know. But what it's really used for is to be able to tap into memories that you don't remember and that are affecting you on a conscious level.
Mm,
And so I tell people to go back to this a certain time where, like, if let's say, for example, you have a tendency to become angry, but you grew up in a very peaceful household and you had a very good childhood, and you never really got angry at your ex-girlfriends. But for some reason, you just have a tendency to get angry. So it's kind of saying, like, is there a life in the past that you've dealt with anger or resentment or bitterness that is currently affecting you in this life, and then kind of see where it goes.
hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I never really understood why my mom read all those books, but she had a lot of different theories, and I'm pretty sure somewhere deep down she definitely had the idea that she was dealing with something that she didn't experience specifically in this life. I mean,
Right.
there's definitely that. So I'm,
Or there's also a recognition of certain places that you've been to, you know. So if you go to a certain place and there's like a soul trigger that
mhm,
happens, and you're like, "Hi, I feel like I've been here before." That's not a deja vu. That's
mhm,
actually some one of your lifetimes you were actually there. And I think the most important thing is this is, and we talked about this earlier about this the subject of identity. You know,
mhm,
I don't think the biggest crisis in the world was this pandemic that happened. I think it has to do with the fact that everyone needs to know who they are, where they come from, and where they're going.
mhm,
And that's an epidemic in itself. You know, we didn't just come here to just make money, have food, have a family, and die. Like there's a bigger purpose to it. So one of the things that I love to do is I take them back to the womb. So I regress them to the womb before they go to a past life.
mhm.
And in the womb, it's so fascinating because in the womb, you actually know more about yourself than you do in your conscious life right now. For example, one of the questions I love asking someone in the womb is, why did you join this family? Like, why did you come to this family?
Oh, that's
And
a
why,
good one.
and another one is, why did you come in this time of this on earth? Why this time? Another one would be is, what's your purpose here in this life? And you might, and then people think, oh, it's probably, are you going to get answers like, I'm going to be a teacher, or I'm going to be a doctor? It's a lot more simple than that. It's usually something like, this is the life where I learned how to forgive, or this is the life where I learned how to love someone unconditionally,
Like
or this is
one lesson, not like
the
something
lesson.
broad or
No, no,
crazy, just one.
it's just one bold lesson that you probably either you haven't learned in the last lifetime, or multiple lifetimes you keep tripping on it. And
Hmm.
this is the one that you need to make it work out. The reason why I know that is because usually when I lead someone to a past life, I walk them through as many times that I can find that's frustrating the symptom currently. So for example, the tendency to anger, let's just use that one for an example. I would go back to like, is there another? So I'll ask them like, what do you look like? You know, where are you? What year is this? What's your name? And then as soon as I find their name, I stick to that name, because what I'm doing is I'm grounding them in their past life during the hypnosis. So now let's say your name was Ariel, you know, which you're a guy, but you're like, why the heck is my name Ariel? Well, we've been through different versions of us, male and female, and so then if it was Ariel, I would keep calling you Ariel to keep grounding yourself, for your subconscious to feel safe, to like keep observing things in that situation. And then what would happen was I'd say, okay, let's go to another situation where you're easily angered, or you feel resentment and bitterness, and let's go to another one. And if you are like, there's no other ones that really stick out to me. I'm like, okay, let's go to your death. Like, how did you die? Who's around you? What's going on? Then this is the best part. When you go to the other side, I walk them through the other side, like as if they were doing it again. And there's usually a guide for advanced people who are like really advanced, like spiritual people. Sometimes there's no guide there. But 90% there's usually a guide, one or two people, or or one being that's not even human. Just there's a guide there.
Huh.
And then one of the questions they ask the guide to you is just say, ask your guide if you fulfilled your purpose in this life. So how cool is that? We all when we've passed away, we've done this dozens and dozens of times. There's kind of a review of like, did you fulfill of loving yourself unconditionally? Did you fulfill that? And it wasn't about all the stuff that you acquired here on this earth. It was about focusing on that lesson.
Hmm. That makes it much more much more logical of like going through your life, flashes or the Akashic record, like just it being, very focused on whatever your goal was.
Exactly. Yep.
I like that. And then I this is just a weird question that popped up in my head, and it
Yeah.
was just in the aspect of you going into the aspects that, in past lives sometimes we're male, sometimes we're female. Now, can there be something, and this is just going to delve into, things that we deal with in today's world. Is there something that happens, and I don't know if you've ever, done hypnotherapy with somebody that, has transgender issues.
Okay. Yeah.
But is there anything that you've ever had in those any kind of situations like this where that idea that you're not in the right body comes
Mm.
from a past life?
Wow, so this is where this is a very great topic because it's so pertinent to, people's philosophies. Again, but this could also anger a lot of people because everyone has their certain belief to it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to reference more to what other very popular hypnotherapists have said. And from what I've heard is that, or what I've read is, and multiple times, is that it has to do with passing away too early of a certain gender.
Hmm.
So if you, let's say you were 11 years old, you didn't really live your life as a female, but then you come back as a male, there is that tendency where it's just like, I didn't get to live out my female like life. So they have that tendency. And, I think to me, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Now, again, another very thing that people don't like to talk about, but it's just is what it is that also you might have chosen specific parents that would allow you to get traumatized as a male, and you were like a female as a child in the past life, that even pushes you even further to be like allow your feminism to come out more. You see, you might have
Mhm.
literally chosen that, and so I think because like again, like I've met, I've had a few gay friends in the past, and because I'm so non-judgmental, I'm just like, hey, that's your choice, man.
Yeah.
It's it just is what it is. But I didn't really have any like sort of like theories of like like what happened, like when did you make a shift, or when did you know, what I'm saying, like I didn't really,
Mhm.
but I did ask sometimes. I said, is there anything that happened in your past that might have affected you to like kind of veer towards men. And
Mhm.
at first, and I've done this I think with two men, and at first they're like, no, no, can't, no, everything was fine. I'm like, okay, but like think deeply, like about your childhood. Like what happened? Were you close to your dad? Were you close to your mom? And it took me 6 hours in a car talking to a guy to finally get somewhere. And again, it was just a very long night. I didn't have anything else to do, so I just kept talking to him. It was like 4 a.m. I finally got the answer. And he was like, well, there was a time in the pool where where I kissed my brother just on the cheek. I'm like 6 years old. And my dad says, "Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever do that again." And he was like, "But I love my brother. I don't care. I don't care. Don't ever do that again." And he told me, he's like, "Wow, I haven't thought about that memory in like forever." But you could see how again that may kind of influence him to be like I just feel like I should be allowed to kiss my brother. And it not saying like it's a resentment towards the dad that said that, but there's just something there for sure, because it said that it really shook his whole system. But again, I don't ever want to say that like all trauma like becomes a sexual lifestyle. Like I don't want to jump into that sort of party and make that assumption at all. I'm just saying that just happened to be one of the people that I talked to.
Right, right. Yeah, it was just something that popped up when we were going into that past life. I'm like, well, that's an interesting like thought to just, what if
Yeah.
that ties to there somewhere,
Yeah. I think that's the only theory that I've heard is just early thing. And there's also a book called Life Between Life, and that one's interesting too because sometimes they say that certain birthmarks in the body are in some relation to the passing away of that person. Like if they got shot like 3 times, you'll see three birthmarks there.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, I've
And
seen
so
that kind of thing.
yeah, and so that's there was a doctor with his scientific team that wanted to do clinical trials. I think they went over to a lot of it actually is more open-minded near like India. Like, it's like over there, because they actually believe in it. But I
Yeah.
don't feel like their belief is what creates the people coming back into their life. I think it's because they're just more open about it and be like, how do you explain this? You can't explain. So the big one is like, how do you explain a grandfather who passed away in an elevator a little too early in life and like what didn't probably finish his life, that like all of a sudden becomes a grandchild of someone and starts talking to the family like, I know your nickname. I know what school you graduated from. I know blah blah blah. Your nickname is this. There's literally no explanation to that. And
Yeah.
sometimes what'll happen is that they'll go jump in the same family line. Thought it's kind of
Hmm.
interesting.
That is. I mean, because I've definitely seen those types of, situations and read about them, and I'm like, how does this child know all this stuff? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, they weren't even around, like it would be one thing if they were even born at that point in time, but they're not,
Yep.
and they couldn't have read it anywhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So, um, I want to know more about these. I mean, obviously, you said you're a Christian and you've kind of opened all these different ideas. What is the Christianity bridging? Like, what are we trying to bridge from Christianity to the energy healing aspects?
Right. So like in my faith, for example, I go to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm a convert. But what's interesting is that people are just kind of, they have fear. We have fear of the unknown, and one of the things is that we're afraid that something will replace something. So for example, like in our church, it's all about the priesthood.
Mhm.
So the thing that you don't want to do is be this happened actually in our history, is that in kind of recent and probably in the last 10 years, is like if a woman were to come out and become an energy healer, and then like she like attracts a lot of other women that are energy healers, and they would start seeing beautiful changes in people's bodies and emotions and depression going away and whatever, they may start really proclaiming out, there's no need for the priesthood, we have energy healing, this is all we need. You know what I'm saying? Then what it kind of does is it kind of, that party and that kind of rebuke of the priesthood kind of it causes fear to the leadership of the top, going like, whoa, this is like a little bit too much. Number one, we don't even know if this energy healing is actually, you're just scamming people through placebo effect, and you're overcharging people or promising miracles, which is another scary one. Number two, it's like how you were a very stalwart person, all of a sudden now you're honoring more a modality than God and everything else. So you see, so it's always the extremists that kind of ruin it for the bunch. You know what I'm saying? And same thing would happen with in our faith too. They were kind of like, hey, be careful with doing like pyramid scams. We have to
Mhm.
understand that like Utah was built on home-based businesses. Like it's the mecca of home-based business. Like the stay-at-home mom is able to stay at home because the father went out there and built a home-based business, or vice versa. The woman killed it, which they say most women are more successful than men in direct sales. But the thing is that you don't want to poo-poo direct sales because one leader in the church said, hey guys, come over to my house, and used his influence to say, you got to join my team now. Like, I'm a very religious person there. That person ruined it for the bunch. So what we're trying to bridge here is that Jesus would hang out with an energy healer as much as he would hang out with a Christian. As long as like, what type of person are you really? Because we
Yeah.
all know religious people who are hypocritical in more ways than one. And as long as you're becoming a loving person, and my wife and I talk about this all the time, that if Jesus or Christianity is not making you someone who unconditionally loves yourself and loves others, then there's something missing in that faith. And
Mhm.
and I feel like energy healing has helped people to find themselves and heal and things like that. But what's beautiful about kind of the work that I do with body code and motion code is that that person is of my faith, and he it just happened to be of my faith. Like, I mean, he could have been a Lutheran, and I would have still done this modality. But I was kind of just happy that he was from our faith. I was like, that's kind of convenient. But I would just like to say that it's just like Christians need to stop making fun of energy healers, and energy healers need to stop making fun of Christians. There's this big chasm that hasn't been bridged yet. And I just feel like if you guys actually hung out together and talked, I think you guys would be just fine. So anyway, those are just my thoughts.
Hey, I completely agree. I'm LDS too. So,
Okay, cool. Okay.
like, but it's a big thing because, you know, like I'm a convert in an aspect of like, I didn't actually, join the church until basically I was married. I mean, obviously I was baptized when I was young at 12, but
Yeah.
not at 8. And my grandparents, were very heavy into the religion, but my aunts and uncles are, it's choppy. It's hit or miss with them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I kind of grew up in it, but not exactly because both my parents drank, like
Mhm.
they got divorced when I was young. It was a lot, so like there was definitely a more spirituality aspect with my mom. My mom was very adamant about the power of prayer. She would constantly tell me, I'd never know how would I ever know the light if I didn't experience the dark. And these are the very powerful messages inside these, small little details. But also, the aspect of like do unto others as you'd want done unto you. And that's something that you can read in every culture.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common thing. And if you literally think about it, just really simply, but also on a deeper level, if you do that, the likelihood of you doing harm to anyone is very minimal. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's some interesting people out there, but for the most part, you're gonna do, what you would want be done to you, which is to be loved and to be taken care of and to be thought about and all those different things, and in that aspect, it's pretty simple. You don't have to complicate it too much. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, you don't have to be Christian to be a good person. Like that's
Yeah.
great
Absolutely.
model, like Christ. If you follow that model, you're
Yeah.
you're
It's a
going to
great
do
model.
really well. But you don't have to,
Right.
necessarily. I don't believe that that's the only way. Regardless of the fact that I'm LDS, I think that there are going to be people out there in the world that by the time this all comes to an end, that might not have reached that point, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
still could be great people and could have made a huge impact on this world. Hey, just wanted to break away from that conversation real quick, give a little break, go over some things going on at M42 Adventures. As always, we are having a great deal of fun. One of the things that we just got back from was a 2-week trip to Hawaii, the island of Molokai, for an Axis deer bow hunt. And we were there for, like I said, 2 weeks, 2 groups of 8 men, and just had a really great time, great deal of camaraderie, just kind of roughing it out there, hunting every morning and every night, and, trying to have some good meals, poke in the middle, as well as we will be going to Alaska for the yearly fishing trip, where that's all, fly fishing and stream fishing, as well as some deep sea fishing on the M42 Adventures boat with, your glorious founder, Rick Trimmer. And then Rick's going to be jumping over to Australia for like a year. So a lot of these upcoming podcasts will all be remote from the different areas that he's going to be in. And that just sounds like a lot of fun. So we'll get to hear some neat adventures and different things like that, as well as the Genesis. As always, let's, I'll invite everyone. The Genesis is free to everyone, and it has so much value in there. 26 channels, 9 expert mentors to learn from and be able to connect with, as well as the 260 plus members that are in there that you can, talk with and just meet people, that are like minded and want to get out there and have little adventures. So that's a glorious thing. We just did the 250 giveaway. So when we hit 250 members, we launched a awesome vacation retreat at Elevation 40 Zion. We're going to be doing that again for 500 members. So when we reach 500, we'll be doing another drawing of all the 500 members, and you could be the lucky winner there. So jump on, as well as we'll be doing some cool reloading Zoom call on Tuesday. And I hope everybody had a good 4th of July weekend. And let's get back to it. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I full far, again, I totally believe in what you just said. I am also a very, big proponent in like, so when I became a convert back in 2024, 2005. No, that's not right. 2000. Oh, the 2006.
Mhm.
2006. So when I was a convert in 2006, I realized, and I came from the Catholic Church, and I was going to be a Franciscan monk. I was like really close to be either a priest or a Franciscan monk. I was like right there. My mother was freaking out, going like, "You're not going to have any babies." Like, she was just, and so just she was just very scared, and I kind of made fun of it because I was just like, "Wait, so you want me to be spiritual, but I can't be a priest?" I'm like, but that's like a higher level of like our own church, like, so but what's really interesting is that, again, it goes back to me being a truth seeker, and I've studied Joseph Smith. I've studied his history a lot, and you have to understand that, like, and this is again my opinion, is that when he said that he wrestled with the saints in regards to like they can't get new doctrine, new information, like they choke on the meat, and like glass would just spread everywhere. I mean, there's a whole quote on it with like hemlocks, like he can't get the saints to learn new things. And he also said um that if I told you who I was, you guys would kill me. That's a very, or no man knows my history. People don't really look into that. Like they don't look into like why would, like, everyone technically, he was almost becoming president. He was the first assassinated almost to become president. You don't think no one knew his history? What was he really talking about? So, in my opinion, he meant that no one knows who I was before, multiple lives before. No man knew my history. And I also feel like he was kind of teaching it with his closest people, but he knew he had to keep some things close to his chest because guess what? We just can't handle that information. And so, ironically, it's like nothing has changed. Like, if he had issues back then with closed-minded saints, we're gonna have problems today with the same thing. Nothing's changed. So I am aware of that. That's why I kind of keep a lot of this information to myself. And Joseph said, no man has ever been damned for believing too much. That's a Joseph Smith quote. I'm in that circle where it's like I don't go out there and preach on the pulpit these certain things, but like if I'm looking at someone and I'm doing sessions on them, but I keep seeing this repeated theme and it has nothing to do with their past, it's like if I don't tell them that they might have a past life, I'm actually not helping my brother. I'm actually not helping his progression. And I'm all about helping his progression.
Mhm.
And the way that we also test things, with prophets, we say, by their fruits you shall know them. Tell me what's wrong with the fruit of me helping out somebody in India at 6 years old who has depression, and I'm willing to alleviate his depression. Like, is that, where's the consequence? Where's the bad fruit? Where is it?
Well, and
And so,
your intention and where you come from is realistically like, I think there's something to be said about the aspect of like your 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 foundation, where you come from, and like
yeah.
what you're trying to do, right? You might be using a different modality, but the source for you is still, the support of Christ is giving you this ability. You know what I mean? And I think that's important to be noted to some people, you know what I mean? But like it all depends on, I mean, there could be people out there that, like we were talking about, people in the church that are doing things that aren't necessarily Christ centered, and that draws them away from being, a disciple of Christ.
Yeah.
While, you're utilizing all of these different factions that you're gained information from in order to do something that is ultimately Christ-like. And that I cannot see any harm in that at all.
No, no, and ironically, it's like if there was some sort of weird guideline where it says I can only work on Christian people, then that would be very destructive and harming. But the fact that it's like I don't care what color you are, what religion you are, this modality works for everyone. There's no poster that says do not help out this race. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like that shows, number one, that God is no respecter of persons. And number two is that the fact that I could do it long distance means it shows, it's a representation that God's love has no boundaries
Mhm.
too. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we don't know the pain of the mom that prays for their son who has suicide ideation at age 7 and has no idea how to alleviate it, and
Oh yeah.
only has been giving medication, and if nothing is working, their friends are not helping, family's not working, church is not working. Where who like how are we going to give that 7-year-old a chance? It's like like it hurt me once. One time, I'll tell you a very painful thing that happened to me. Um, I was gonna work with this mother who I think she had an 11-year-old son and suffered with depression and a lot of the sort of scarier mental illnesses, like I have a theory that 80% of it is usually entity attachments, like dark entities that kind of take over or are attached to you. Again, a psychologist wouldn't touch that with like a 10-foot pole, but I'm willing. Sometimes I come out of my sessions and I tell my wife, she's like, how's work today? I'm like, I was like an exorcist today. I was not. These were not. I had like three back to back, But we have to understand that in our faith that we believe in, it's like what the heck are the other third of the children doing here on Earth? Uh, they're not giving us high fives throughout the day. They are putting post hypnotic suggestions in our minds, which are hypnotized statements in our minds. They're courting with us. They're putting portals on our bodies so that they can enter our bodies, especially if we have addictions, and so that's why they call, bars spirits, is because that's where they go. I mean, it's almost like in the movie Ghost, it's like the
Oh yeah,
spirits.
that's a
And
trip
that
movie.
that movie had a lot more truth than people even know.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is that we have to give that 7-year-old a chance. We have to find a way for that mom to stop crying at night, and how are we gonna do it? So this modality has allowed me to kind of pierce through non-normal procedures to help someone. And at the end of the day, are they getting better? So if they're getting better, then keep doing it. And that's why
Like
I've built this practice for 10 years. I've been meeting with 100 clients a week, is because people are seeing fruits,
you're like an energy priest.
And I never
You
thought of
know,
it that way.
I'm just saying, like, you talk about the exorcism and stuff like that, and it's like, despite you not going that monk way, you kind of did, like in a way, like you're saving people from the worldly, some worldly and not so worldly things, and that's incredible all by itself. I mean, for how much stuff that we know it affects us, that's just from our diet, the electronical devices that we use, like all the things that we're surrounded by that disrupt the natural energy field that we emanate and
Yeah.
also draw in, all those things. That's a crazy thing to think about.
My
I
thing is, I love the way you're bringing this up, because man, you're speaking my language. We have so many things contrary to our growth.
Mhm.
Whether it's the air out there, whether it's the food we eat, whether it's the social media we see, everything is very contrary to trying to progress and grow here. It's like we're going against the wind, But in some ways, I remember I like to label myself as like sort of an energy medic.
Mhm.
I'm like someone gets like, first of all, what I love about the medic concept is that I'm already influencing you, that you are part of a spiritual war. Like I'm
Mhm.
already like, so you don't have a medic if there's no war, you
No.
know? So, and so I tell people, I'm like, look, we had a war in heaven, and the only difference is the location has changed. It's here now. And to deny it is like, you're going to be affected by things and you're going to be curious to why I'm dealing with these things. I would rather you wake up and tell someone, like, or, Oscar Wilde says, true friends stab you in the front. I'd
Hmm.
rather be a true friend and say, listen, man, you were in a war before, you're in a war now, and there's spiritual and physical things that are going to be harming you. And if you don't take care of yourself emotionally, you will not make it. And
Yeah.
then I wish they were taught that back in fifth or sixth grade. You're producing these emotions, these attachments. What's interesting about Dr. Brad, my friend, is that he um, he was actually going to not have entities as part of the body code. So you have to understand, he's a chiropractor. There's like, he has the nervous system, the chakras, all these different systems. It's incredible. It's like very thorough, like coronary valve. I mean, everything, and it's very advanced. And people who see it are like, whoa, this took like a computer engineer slash chiropractor to make this thing, and God's energy in here. But what's interesting is that he was going to not put entities in there. He debated about it over a very long period of time because he was nervous that the medical professions would discount the credibility of his platform. They would say, okay, now he's going into entities, like, we're not going to like really treat this seriously, you know? So, but then what happened was that night that he was debating about it, he had 3 or 4 entities come to his place and just yell at him and scream at him and kept him up all night. And then he obviously cast them out, and then he said, "This is why I'm putting it in there, because obviously I was having the thought of not putting it on there, and they don't want me to put it on here because then other will be giving other people power of knowledge, knowing that they exist, and then knowing how to remove them." I'll tell you this really interesting thing too. I don't know if you're liking the subject at all, but um, something that's interesting about entities is that um, it, there's there's a really great example of a kid that I work with. Back in the day, I used to use Zoom, and but now I just do phone call. And actually, 90% of my sessions are done via email. I don't even actually talk to people anymore. And a lot of the testimonials you'll see, like dyslexia gone, fibromyalgia gone. I had 2 cancer clients that don't have them anymore. Like I never talked to them over the phone. It was all done via email. So what's interesting is that, but when I did it on Zoom back in the day, my first 3 years, 4 years, I met with this one young kid, and he had some very serious depression. He's age 19. I'll keep his name anonymous, but age 19, just very depressed. So I started working on his heart wall. It's the trauma around your heart. And you probably felt this, Chase, where your heart feels heavy or feels like it's going to break. Either someone passed away or there's relationship conflict, stuff like that. I'll talk about this concept later, but it's a very good subject, this thing called the heart wall. And 93% of people have this thing. But anyway, so I cleared his heart wall and it lowered down his depression a lot. But then it went down to like, I believe, like a 4. And then, I said, "Okay, well, what's like 4 out of 10?" And I said, "Okay, so what else is causing you this?" And when I was going through muscle testing, I was like, "There's an entity attached to you." And, as soon as I did that, his face turned pale. And, I remember looking at him going like, "Hey, are you okay over there? Like, what's going on?" And, he clearly said like, "It's here," right? And I muscle tested. I was like, "Is this a male figure?" And it tested positive. I'm like, and I told him, I said, "This is a male, right?" You could look at him. He's like, "Yeah, it's a male." I'm like, "Okay, cool, confirmed." Um, so he was like kind of like standing at the edge of the door or whatever. And basically what I said is I said, "Okay, what energies attracted this entity in the first place?" So here's what's kind of an interesting thing. They don't talk about this in the Bible, but there's certain emotional energies that are kind of like sirens to these entities. And there's also like, for example, if there's a contentious home, like a home with just a lot of fighting, these energies may be leaving the husband's body or the wife's body, and these energies may be lying in the walls because the walls can also absorb emotions too. So then you have a home that's vibrating with certain emotions, and entities are like, how can we break that home even more? And so it gets worse. The fighting gets worse. Everything gets worse. When you go into your house, you just feel heavy. It's because there's attachments there. You've made a home that attracts them like a magnet. But what's interesting is that I said, okay, you have a will to die here just recently, and let me remove that for you. And that means when will to die means you're too much in your head and you're self-abusing yourself and it causes depression. And I think it was like age 14, maybe it wasn't 18, it was age 14. That was when he came out of the closet, age 14. And his parents were very negative towards him and didn't want to have anything to do with him. And he wanted to commit suicide.
Mm.
And anyway, so I released that. And as soon as I released it, the ghost that he was seeing kind of buzzed, like almost like a television, like kind of just buzzed out, and then it got really close to him, like face to face, and his eyes even got even bigger because he was scared. He was like, just like it was so close to him. Imagine seeing a spirit and it's nose to you. And I said, okay, I'm like, don't be scared. It's okay. Take a deep breath. There's still something else that attracted them. I removed that energy as well. And then all of a sudden I cast them out. I said, the name of the creator, I command you to leave this person. And then it like slowly walked away while looking at him the whole time and then left the room. And then he had a processing days after that, but then his depression went away. So again, it's kind of like if you're unaware of these things that are trying to make our life worse and harder, then you may be missing a major component in your mental health, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
So
So
yeah, so when I cast them out, or it's just interesting to talk to. It's kind of like most people, if we see an entity, it's like, okay, it's simple, just say in the name of Jesus Christ, leave here.
Mhm.
But there's but then it's almost like you kick them out to your lawn, and then they slowly kind of walk back and go. They just kind of wait there. They'll be like, all right, we'll give it about what, 2 days, Stan? Okay, cool, 2 days, and then we'll just come back. See, so you have to remove the energy that attracted them in the first place. And here's kind of a weirder thing, because you and I both believe in kind of a spirit paradise, spirit prison.
Mhm.
They like the energies that you created here move on to the next life. The traumas that you created here move on with you. So if they have a will to die that they experience in their life, and they see you have a will to die, they go, oh, he matches me. Like attracts like. So they attach to you. And so the goal is to remove this attachment, remove your will to die, remove it, and then you won't attract that specific spirit. And then so I kind of safe harbored the client. I said, okay, we got rid of it, but the point is that it doesn't come back. And then I also ask, are there any energies that it left inside of you? They might have left a curse. They might have left a post-hypnotic suggestion. They might have left a cord with you to kind of know how to find you. So I do a cleanup afterwards, again, to make sure that they don't just sit there just connected to you. They leave thoughts in your mind to make it harder for you and to attract more of them. So again, they have this whole process. Like evil has a process. Like they have an agenda. They have an MO when it comes to connecting with us. And the MO is this: is they want us to unalive ourselves, and they want us to break families. But that's their MO. If we don't know that, then it's like kind of like, I feel bad for the husband or wife that's like, I don't know why our relationships are so hard, or is there's something else that may be affecting it. I'm
Right.
talking too much, by the way.
No, no, no. I really like that aspect of like, just because I want people to be aware of,
Yeah.
you know, like things that could be affecting them that they do not even, can't even like, comprehend or are aware of at all. You know what I mean? And so like having someone like energy test them, just, almost like if you just think about it as, you're a medic, a doctor's visit, yearly doctor's visit, just
Yeah.
a scan through so that,
Yep.
especially if you're feeling off, like, I don't know what's happening, something isn't clicking. I don't know what it's doing. I mean, there's definitely been times like that for me where I feel like it would have been beneficial to know, what was going on. And
Mhm.
I feel like, it took a lot of work to get through some of the situations you were just talking about in my own life. I mean, as a young person, it's not something I talk about, but as a young person, I was in a violent home. Like my mom and her, suitors or even stepdad did lots of violence, lots of yelling, screaming, all those types of things. And there were times, I tried to hang myself in my own closet, like 10 years old. Like, who does that? What kind of 10-year-old has surmounted enough problems or even knows enough to think that they, shouldn't be here on this planet, and it's like, until you experience those things and really kind of like understand them and you can look back on them, you don't even realize what was actually going on,
Yeah.
and I feel like I dealt with things for a long time after that. I mean, in my young adolescence and, young teens, like 12, 13, 14, I was very dark. Like my mindset and everything that I did or in my life and around my friends was all very dark, like
Mhm.
basically shifted complete spectrums towards like, all I wanted to do was cause mayhem and everything that I did as far as my outward, expressions was dark, just what you would call gothic, these
Mhm.
days. But it was also very much a connectedness to the adversary instead of seeking the light, because I didn't feel like I was deserving of the light. It was a completely like I don't deserve that. I'm not going to get it, so I'm just going to do this instead.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like a lot to deal with, when you look back on it, and you've made it through it, you made it to the other side of the river or whatever you want to call it, and kind of evaluate that and still be in that kind of unknown, like not understanding what was going on with you, but to be able to evaluate an aspect of like that type of environment, the entities being there in the home. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, despite that there were periods of lovingness, like where did all that contention and anger and violence come from? And it's honestly more believable to, understand that there are things that can affect you, on those scales if you let if you let them, if your lifestyle is conducive with what they want, and
Yeah.
that's a very insightful, thing for me. I think,
Yeah.
I definitely had some weird experiences as a child. I even had a near death experience when I was like 4 years old that, it took me a long time to even wrap my head around.
Mhm.
So it's lots of things happen to me that make me a prime candidate for being LDS, and also allowing all these other things to kind of be an open-minded option, because
Mhm.
I don't know anything. And honestly, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, the only option I have, in what I believe, is that when I have questions, and I have lots of them because I question everything much like yourself, is I go to the Lord with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you don't get answers back. Like, that thing just stays floating up in the air because it's not for me to receive at this point, and I have to, you kind of have to come to terms with that, if you're going to be, God, you know, aligned person,
Yeah.
is that, not everything is for you in the time frame in which you want it, and so, but to always go there, to not trust kind of anything in this world, because I mean, if you evaluate it, we're surrounded by lies like all day long, every day.
Yeah.
It's more common for me to be lied to than it is to be told the truth, and that's a scary thing to come to.
Yeah, we need definitely discernment. I try to read the good book in the morning because I feel like if you have a spiritual buffet in the morning, then the rest of the day you can discern that this is sour, this is poison, this is not real. But if you have nothing to compare it with, then you're kind of left to like figuring it out yourself mentally, you know. But man, kudos to you, man. You've done a lot of work, and that's incredible. Like again, I had this amazing meditation where, oh, actually, let me go back. Uh, so I spoke to a stake president once, and I was like, and I was just talking to him, and I was asking certain questions. One of my favorite questions to ask is like, if you were 17 years old and you like saw yourself there in a diner, if you only had 3 minutes to talk to yourself, what would you say? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get 30 years of experience in like just 3 minutes from this person that so I don't have to go through something. And anyway, we were talking, and it was so interesting. He said, "I need to tell you that you have a gift." And so I was like, "Okay, I'm open to hear this." And he said, he says, "You have a very non-judgmental energy about you, you know." And I remember going like, "This is the first thought I had." I was like, "I have no idea how this non-judgmental energy will assist me as a Verizon greeter in Sandy, Utah." This is exactly what he said. And literally I left kind of just like, oh man, it's like what, how am I gonna like it's not even a superpower in this job that I do. But look at how God works is that he sent me like, we're always kind of asking what we're supposed to be doing in this life. In some way our heart is always kind of praying for more clarity all the time. He gave me more clarity, but it didn't like build fruition until like 10 years later when I became a practitioner. I started working with clients, and then it like dawned on me like this thought. It's like, this is what would benefit me, is non-judgmental energy for clients who are suffering and dealing with things. So with your prayer answers, and I always say like God always answers the prayers on at that moment. It just takes time for delivery, or it's slower in delivery, or it's quick in delivery. But
Mhm.
technically he always goes, yes, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up. And then it's just a matter of like, there's a really great talk, one of my favorite talks. I've listened to this probably thousands of times, is my go-to. It's called I said, bread or stones, understanding the God we pray to. Bread or stones, understanding the God we pray to, by S. Michael Wilcox. That to me is my favorite slap. I call it slappy kind of talk, because it slaps you around a little bit.
I
And
like it.
the theory is, because I don't like fuzzy talks. I like a talk that kind of just throws me around like a rag doll. Um, so it talks about, I love this concept that we worship a fourth watch God.
Hmm.
And back in like those Israel times, the Romans, the first watch is the 6 to 9 p.m., second watch 9 p.m. to 12. So we worship a 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. God, and he proves in all the Bible, the Book of Mormon, every, like, look how long it took for the rescue to come. Not because you didn't deserve it, but it's because you'll appreciate the answer when it shows up. That you haven't, he calls it, you haven't carved a pocket in your heart yet to receive it, which is AKA experience. And so it just slides off your heart if you were to give it to you earlier. Love that talk. It's my favorite. And so I always when I don't get a prayer answered, I always tell myself, I'm like, I'm just in the first watch. Like, so just, just kind of keep reminding myself, I'm like, he's a fourth watch God. And I'm probably in the second watch at this point, and it's fine. I'm okay with it. It's not that he doesn't love me, not that he doesn't care. It's just that I'm going to really love the answer on the fourth watch.
Right. And it's one of those things I talk to my wife about all the time. I'm like, she gets stressed, or worries about something. And I'm like, it'll happen. You just got to wait and be patient. And
Yeah.
she's like, but it's going to be late, or we're not going to have it in time, or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, it'll happen right when it needs to happen, and
Right.
not a second sooner, and it's like that with so many different things right at the last moment. But did it need
Yeah.
to happen before that? No, it didn't. And it needs to happen right before it's too late, right? So that's when it tends to happen, but you have to be patient enough to let it happen there, and
Yeah. And
not try to rush it with your own things.
yeah, with my maybe your wife may hear this podcast. Probably my favorite thing that happened that was kind of delayed was in my blessing it said something to the extent of like, you will find your soulmate. And that word usually is not used in blessings.
Mhm.
But I don't want to go into it, but there were like 5 or 7 signs that I saw that this is my wife, like, and I was like divorced before, but I didn't think, like, I never doubted that, like, the patriarch lost his mind for like 5 minutes, and then and it just kind of like zoned out. I'm just gonna talk. If it was a one sentence soulmate thing, it's one thing. A whole paragraph, it's a little different. And I
Mhm.
found her, and and she's my current wife now, Jess, and I love her to death. But what's really interesting is that um you know it said that if we were to come together, that we would have a marriage, like a happy marriage, with our kids or something like that, right? And what's interesting is that I've, in my past relationships, due to vindictive narcissists, I've been kind of they've been kind of my kids have been ostracized from me in some ways or another, so
Mhm.
my blessing was not making sense until I met my soulmate. And you can't plan this out. She has 2 kids that are the same age as the kids that have been ostracized from me. So it's like I'm literally almost like raising the same energies in this current relationship. But I had to wait for that paragraph to make sense until I found my soulmate. I just, so again, it's just another point to, like, patience. It's like he's going to answer, and you're going to love the answer when it gets there. And I love raising my 2 kids, and we're working things out in my past, but like for now the buffer is like I get to raise these 2 kids that are the exact same age. It's like
Right.
amazing.
Right. Well, and I always respect that too about people that can, take on the the blessing of raising someone else's kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I had a great stepdad. My mom was married to a man for about I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and then they got divorced. And even after they were divorced, I still ended up living with him, and my mom ended up leaving and moving to Vegas. But he still took the time to raise me and take care of me and kind of guide me in a way. Even after they got, split up. And so like that aspect of being something, that supportive role inside somebody other that fathered those children, life, and being happy about it and actually taking the time and looking at it as that blessing that it is awesome. I really respect that. So, I wanted to ask you one more question. What's this, is it attracting the wrong energies?
Okay, so I think what you're referring to is this thing called a broadcast message, and
Okay.
so and let me refer to something even before that. If one of your listeners at the M42 Adventures were like, I love doing adventures with you guys. I love like what you guys put in packages, and just whatever you guys are entertaining people with in regards to getting outside, which is really great. In fact, it's. I mean, I've just learned what was like 3 months ago. I was just reading about or watching a video about how certain redwoods or certain trees have things that kind of release from their fibers that basically assist you with like cancer pot like cancer symptoms.
Mhm.
Just being in the tree environment as with specific trees, they're like releasing your cure.
Mhm.
I mean, it doesn't get better than that. But I'm just saying, like, the outdoors just is also too. It increases your brow chakra, which is your intuition, you know. And so,
Mhm.
and our we come from technically spiritually nomadic people. Like we were outside all the time. I read this one book also too that talked about how how back in the day prophets would leave for very long periods of time from their wife, and if we were to do that with our wife currently, she would think like I'm gonna go take a walk and go up on the mountain. We would be considered like we have some sort of suicide or depression issues. They'd be like, is everything okay? And it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna commune with God. I'll be right back. Like, you know, so
Mm.
that's something that they had going for them, is that their nature was their temple. Like that's, and the wives were used to it. It's kind of like they grew up like that. Now we can't do that. We walk out of the matrix. They think there's something wrong. So probably
Right.
M42 is probably assisting with a indirect form of increasing revelation. But
Yeah.
the second one is how dark it was in the past. People don't understand that we had no city lights. It was very, very dark. Like when you walk, you don't know, you might get eaten by a bear. You might fall into a pit, never come back. It was like we don't know true darkness like our ancestors do. And then in that case, too, we don't know how beautiful the Milky Way used to look like back in the day too. So when you were really in touch with the polar opposites of spirituality. We had darkness and we had light right in one setting of just the nighttime, you know? And so certain things like that, it's like I kind of envy. I have spiritual envy to our great ancestors who had these crazy dichotomies in their lifestyle that we don't have, that we have to literally seek it out. We have to excuse ourselves. It's kind of a different situation. But anyway, back to, that was a tangent there. But with the heart wall, this is probably my last message, is like, is it possible that someone enjoys your adventure, your program, but then maybe like they might be running away from something? You know, like you're an escape. Is it possible? You know, like Michael Jackson said that he's a master of escapism. Like he lets people to kind of alleviate from all their worldly symptoms just for a while, but they have to go back. Like it's waiting in the car when they get there. You see, and I try to tell people, I'm like, don't go on vacation with for escapism, because what are you running away from? You know, how come you can't have peace in your home? See, that's the, why does the millionaire not feel happy with 7 homes yet? Like who, like I'm talking to that guy.
Mhm.
Well, it's because he has this thing called the heart wall. And I'll just tell you what it is real quick. Every time your heart feels heavy, feels like it's going to break, your body is really one step closer to what they call broken heart syndrome, where the tendons inside your heart are stretching, and that if they rip, the heart collapses and you die of BHS, you know? And maybe 20 years ago, a chiropractor would tell you, oh, it's because of stress at work. But now, if you talk to some more modern Mayo Clinic heart doctors, cardiologists, they would say, no, it's a breakup, it's someone grieving, it's stress at work, it's emotional symptoms. Like they're actually a little bit more open minded about other things that can create BHS. But what we found out is that your body places one of those trapped emotions over the heart to protect it from breaking. So your heart, the good news is you lived another day. The bad news is that now you have a wall in front of your heart. And so we build this from the womb. If your mom is going through hard times, and maybe in your situation she was going through some tough times with either relationship or her addictions, you're in the womb taking hits at the same time. So when she feels something, this emotion kind of went towards you, and you just made a wall around it to protect your heart. So if you started already feeling depression age 4, age 5, and if you notice, it's kind of an upward slant, it's like a upward slope. Depression wasn't like heavy at 5. It was like this, it got worse and worse and worse, and you got more numb and more numb and more numb. At 13, maybe you hit a big apex like you were talking about. Um, it makes a lot more sense of the creation of these walls that we're producing. If you didn't feel safe around your your mom, you might have felt a resentment heart wall. You might have felt resentment, but you made a wall out of it. You put it over your heart, and so I call it like an energetic bomb shelter. Like, how fun is it to be in a home that's beautiful and whatever, but you're living in a bomb shelter inside the home? And and these are the 8 symptoms, and I'll leave with this. And number one is you have low energy. and low immune system. Number two is lack of clarity of your mission in life. Maybe you're like, I feel like there's something else out there. I just don't know what it is. Or maybe you are doing your mission, but you're just not feeling that happiness, that joy, that flow in life, and that could be a heart issue. The third one is someone gives you love and affection. Maybe Chase, like your wife, gives you love and affection, and she's doing a great job at it. You see it, but you don't feel it like you used to. Like you don't feel that nourished love, and you're just like, I know there's nothing wrong with my wife. There's nothing wrong with me. Like, why do I feel kind of desensitized when she's almost like she's sending love blanks to you? The fourth one is when you talk to, I'm using your wife as an example, but bet you have the best relationship ever. I'm just saying it as an example. If you were to talk to your wife, how many times does this happen where you say something and then she hears something differently and you're like, I didn't mean it that way. And she's like, no, you're being rude. I'm not being rude. And in your mind, our first way we go to as men is that she's having a bad day. That's why she's taking my words wrong. But I tell you that your heart is sending mixed messages to people, and so they have no choice but to hear something that's not exactly as clear as when your heart started it, because it has to go through depression, anxiety, all those walls before it finally gets to her, and then she's like, "Whoa, what do you mean by that?" And then the last one is it could affect your financial abundance too, because nothing's more attractive than somebody who knows their mission, mind and heart, knows how to receive love perfectly, knows how to give love perfectly. All of a sudden, people want to come out of the woodwork to help you with finances. And then the last two is it can affect depression, anxiety, and triggers. Because if you're numb and you're in this little bomb shelter, you feel depressed that you can't connect with people fully. You feel anxious, like, what does she mean by that? It's because you're in the shelter, and you can get angry quickly because again, you're just in a very overly secure spot, and the war is over. It's like maybe the hardest part of your life, Chase, is already done. You're like, I'm living the good life now. Like I have like great wife, great home, whatever. But it's like, but you're still protecting yourself from what happened before. So that's what I would recommend to your listeners is there's if you look up my name, Emanuel, you look up Heartwall. I think we have over 65,000 views on YouTube there. Because everyone resonated with the message. It's not because I marketed myself. It's just because as
Right.
soon as they saw the word Heartwall, they're like, I think I have one of those.
Mhm.
So I think that's a great way to start your journey is to have a breakthrough removing those walls. And so, yeah, that's my recommendation to your listeners is imagine if you didn't have those walls anymore, how much would your life be different? And so,
Right. Right. And I think that's important, especially important to, my listeners. And it's something that definitely resonates with me. It's something that I was talking kind of to my sister about recently. And I mean, not so much, I mean, probably a wall, but, not so much like, one that's blocking me from too many things. But like, I have a problem with not being able to get as excited about things as I used to. Like, just everything's kind of just, going with the flow. And while it feels great, it's not like I used to be really excitable, like I just
yeah,
really kind of just off the wall a little bit. And I'm like, I want a little bit of that back. It might have been a little bit too much. I
yeah,
at least want a little bit of it back. And,
yeah,
lots of trauma, grief, all, over the years, especially like the last 7. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to dive into that a little bit more. And for our listeners, the aspect of getting outside your comfort zone and experiencing new things, you can't do that. It's very difficult. If you're not already in an area where, like, you're confident and you've dealt with a lot of these situations that we've been talking about on this podcast. So getting out there and finding out if you are suffering from any of these energetic blockages or entities is important to the overall success of just being, growth in general. And so I think it's an important area to go into. And you make it seem so simple, Emmanuel. Like, just, giving you a message, getting on, talking about yourself in an email a little bit, what you've been going through, and then basically evaluating it afterwards and just kind of keeping that communication open and dealing with it. And then eventually, I'm sure there's no more to deal with until you end up having something else come up, kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah. You just there's some clients that just kind of do maintenance from here and there, but it's like there's always, I mean, I'll just say this, just don't trust Facebook. There's a lot of clients on Facebook, and the people that if you're watching this and you're like, or you're listening to this and you're like, man, I really envy that family. I work with that family, and I'm telling you that there are things that they are not showing on Facebook, and no one is broken in some area in their life. I mean, that's why we're here. If we were fully perfect, we wouldn't be here. We
Hmm.
came here to like work on ourselves. So there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that we just have a lot of unprogramming to do. That's all.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but you had to go through those things to become the amazing person you are now. But like, let's just take off the shield of the sword. Like, stop attacking people,
right.
and enjoy life now. You deserve it. And that's kind of what I want for all men
Yeah,
and
no,
women.
I totally get it. And I mean, there's an aspect of still keeping, yourself ready. I always want to take that into account. Like if you've been kind of honed into the person that is prepared for battle, keep
Mhm,
that preparedness. But like you also have to live over here as well,
mhm.
and be the warrior in the garden kind of aspect. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, I love that. I love that saying. That's one of my favorite sayings, "Warrior in the
It's
garden."
really good, I mean,
Yeah, it's really
because
good.
that's for most of us, that's kind of how we live. But we have to be prepared for it,
Right.
and to keep that mindset and also like develop a kind of a loving nature and you know kind of like a masculine affectionateness towards people. When it's kind of like what you brought up about your buddy in the pool and kissing his brother is like
Yeah,
instantly I went to what's wrong with kissing your brother, like it
exactly, me
was
too.
on the cheek. There's plenty of cultures out there that always kiss each other, and it's like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see anything rudely wrong with that. That's
No,
affection and
me
love
neither.
to your brother, and so it's
Yeah. I
it's
and
uh
I think too, you and I have the very same belief that like our who is your role model? And again, there's so many even great ascended masters. There's great spiritual teachers. For me, it's just Jesus, but I'm just saying that like I respect all spiritual masters out there. But I love like if we can we have to admit something though, that there's something about Jesus that's attractive and we kind of miss the mark on it, which is that he was the master of elation. Like he knew real happiness, real joy. And the real joy was that he was very balanced in his feminine and masculine, very balanced. And
hmm,
if all of us, and I'm talking to myself, we are the fix it guys. We're like, something's wrong, fix it. So that whole scripture where Jesus said he wept, that would have never been in the scripture if he wasn't balanced in masculine and feminine. We would have skipped the weeping part. We'd be like, "Where's Lazarus? Just show me the cave. Let's do this." And I'm even going to move the rock. Like I know Jesus had someone else move the rock. I'm going to move the rock with miracles, and I'm going to bring this person back. But we missed the best part of Jesus is that the reason why he was happy is because he was a professional at mourning with others who are mourning. And if we don't, and we can't do that if we haven't fully healed or grieved ourselves, like the things that we've gone through. Like we have to have empathy with ourselves first to have full empathy with other people. And that's the secret to happiness, is not that he was again just always happy lollygag. That's not realistic. In fact, in Chinese medicine, they don't even use the word happiness. They're more about balanced. That like, how can I be more balanced? Because
yeah.
happiness is kind of elusive. It kind of comes and goes, comes and goes. But if we want that internal joy, Jesus owned it. Like he literally created it and owned it. But we have to be in touch with our emotions. We have to get the work done. We have to do the and so anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a good point. And, also key points are if your parents didn't have it to show you, then you got to learn it somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah,
just didn't
very
have a
true.
lot of assets to show you and give you to go out into the world, like you got to figure that out later in life. And it sucks, but like that's part of your mission is to develop that and then also share it with others. I mean, your message, what you do, I'm sure that even you have to go through and have your own little sessions to deal with certain kinds of things, and
Yeah.
you're a practitioner of this, and you have to go through it yourself, just like therapist needs therapy, all
Yep.
those things. So, and a big thing with the LDS people, like, get out there, make yourself open and tell some non-biased parties about your problems and things like that. Like you have to realize that there's all kinds of different options, not just your bishop. Like definitely seek all these options that can help you heal. And some of them may work, some of them may not, but at least they're out there and you're keeping yourself open-minded and, questioning everything. So,
Yeah, and again, it's like a lot of um the word new age to me is a very kind of people are trying to dog down on kind of what I do, like, but really it's old age. I correct people literally on the spot when they say, "Oh, it's just some new age." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa." I'm like, "Your great 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 grandfather practiced this in the Amazonia. You may want to chill out with that word, because it's again, where the pendulum is coming back to how our energetic spiritual forefathers used to use this stuff on a consistent basis. We've just forgotten where we come from. So I never tell people it's new age. It's ancient wisdom. It's ancient work that we as a society have been bombarded by big pharma, that it clouded our minds, that we have no power in ourselves anymore. And this age right now is where we're trying to take the power back finally. But for a while it was like we all had white coat syndrome. I mean, my parents were both doctors. I mean, it doesn't get more white syndrome in my own house, you know? So,
But your mom was at least able to, keep herself open about all of it.
and again, it's because she went into the medicine field to heal people, period. And
Mhm.
she knew chemotherapy wasn't the only way. It had to do with their diet. What toxic environment did they come from? Like, she was really looking to heal the person as a whole, not a band-aid that you might relapse in just a month or two. So she was just like, again, it's her love. She told me something really powerful once, and I'll probably end with this, is she says, she told me that the difference between me and other doctors, Emmanuel, is that I treat them like or I treat my clients or my patients like they are alive, not like they're dying. And I just remember
Ooh,
that always stuck with me. I was like, yeah, it's how you view people. And when I work with my clients, I maybe I don't tell them verbally. I'm like, I'm working on my brother. Like, I'm working on my sister. So I'm gonna put my whole heart into this thing. And because of that viewpoint that I have, that filter, my sessions just turn out better because my love is there. It's like, I care for you, man. Like I'm either gonna like waste your time, or I'm gonna actually help you progress in life. So I've got like a duty to do something. And some people don't do that. Some people just casually, just kind of do their work, but they don't really see people how they really are. And I think my mom was an expert at that.
dig it, dig it. Well, I really appreciate your time, Manuel, and I really hope anybody listening to this, how do they contact you again?
So there's a couple places. I mean, my favorite thing is, like, my wife and I, we have a platform. It's called haveempathyandlove.com. So it's haveempathyandlove.com, which is kind of a abbreviation for heal, right?
Mhm.
Heal is haveempathyandlove.com. And just it's free to join. And if you go in there, my wife and I we do group healings there. So I'm certified also in group healing. But you can just inbox me, like almost like a Facebook social media thing, and just say, hey, heard you on M24 of M42, and I love your podcast, whatever, and then I'm willing to also offer your listeners a free session if they've never done the body code before. So that's something I'm willing to do. And typically when I first work with someone brand new, I like to focus on pain. Like, most people have some pain in their body. That's typically, if I can lower their pain down within 10 to 15 minutes, the faith increases in the work, and I can tell them what emotions are causing it, what ages. That's usually where I start, and then the rest is history. It's kind of like, after that, we're like, okay, where do we want to go with this? And but yeah, I'm willing to offer them a free consultation, phone consultation.
Fantastic. I really love it, and I'm actually going to put that aspect out on the Genesis as well, our online community. So you probably have some people contact you from there as well.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing all that information. I urge everybody to get out there and at least, you know, open yourself up to the idea and try it and see if it works for you. Because I'm definitely am. Just because I mean, several things that I've been experiencing lately, I figured we can go through and get a pretty good match on. So,
Yeah. Awesome, man.
but
Thank you
all
so
right.
much for taking all the time, and thanks for all that you guys do over there to like help people get outside their comfort zone, and allowing them to kind of get back to how we used to be, kind of like in nature, and it's like that is missing in our society. I feel like we're all the society's trying to put us in our home and kind of like be under this like fake artificial light. And like I think M42 is like all against that. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
go out there, enjoy what the creation that God has made, and then feel like a man, and create brotherhood. And I think that's fantastic.
That's what it's all about. And, it's just, it really is the mission. And hopefully we can get everyone back out there and really living that type of life and kind of keep a nice balance, like we were talking about with the Chinese, the Eastern cultures is just a
Yep.
balance in between there, and not so much of this, not everything about that, but just a shift back and forth so that we can keep that balance and not get so drained from the electronics and the things that we have to constantly pay attention to, and just go out and kind of like meditatively ground and talk to nature and listen to it.
Yeah.
It's a glorious experience. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day. Well, that was an amazing conversation with Emanuel Zevallos with Compass Healing Center. And I mean, I learned a lot. I hope you all did too. And honestly, I hope that anybody who feels like that they may be dealing with things that they don't understand, or that they've sought multiple different outlets or modalities to heal or move forward from, that if they haven't found success in those different areas, or looking for just an old world style of healing process, please contact Emmanuel and his wife, and I mean, realistically, anybody who can do this type of energy work and healing for you and with you, so that you can move past anything that may be blocking you from growing and living the best life full of joy and love that you could be living. And so I'm just really happy to have had that conversation, and I know how valuable it can be to our listeners, and I'm just really excited to hear the good news. So thank you very much. This is Chase Segmiller signing off with the M42 Adventures podcast. We'll see you next time.